Hey, everyone, welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is The Breaking Free Show. The Breaking Free Show. I'm so happy to have all of you here today. Thank you for joining us. And as always, I am honored that you're here and that you've chosen this time to spend with us. And I'm going to give you all that I got every single week. I'm going to give you all that I got. And I'm honored that you're here. And I know you could spend it in a lot of other places. So thank you for being here. Let me say hi to Amnon.
Hello, Marilyn.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Amnon is our producer.
Your hair looks great. I like the haircut.
You know what? I'm trying to schedule my appointment now so that it's exactly on time, and sometimes I miss it. But it's I think my time is like 5 weeks. I go a few days over 5 weeks, and honey, let me tell you what, I ain't fit for no camera. But anyway, I do it anyway. Because what the heck? You don't care about my hair now, do you? You only care about what my guests are saying, what I'm saying, what we're all thinking and feeling. That's all that matters, right? My hair don't really matter. So anyway, I'm really happy you're here. Remember that you are welcome to join our chat. You can put your name underneath our video and come in there and ask questions, whatever you like. You can call in anytime you want at 919-518-9773, or you can come in, comment on Skype at computers. That's plural, the number 2K voice. And, we really want you to do it. I know a lot of times you all listen and you watch, but we would love you to call in anytime. This is an opportunity. I know, most of us are not accustomed to doing that on TV, but this is different TV. This is our TV. This is our channel. This is a way for us to communicate and create the kind of world that we all want to live in, that we see for ourselves and our families. So feel free to comment, call in, give us your experiences, anytime you want. You don't have to, but you are more than welcome to. So let's get on with our
yes. Those who are watching us on Facebook,
yeah.
They need to come to nissancommunications.com and get to the watch live for the chat.
Yes. So if you're on Facebook and you're watching us, then you are welcome to go to nissancommunications.com and you can watch us there also, but you can participate in the chat. So if you're on Facebook and you want to say something and you want to do it in the chat, come to our website, but you can call in as well. All right, here we go. So we are delighted to welcome back our guest, Dr. Elisa Medhus. She's been on before, and she has she has a very interesting story, and we're going to talk about her story, but we're going to take it into some different directions. So, Elisa, welcome back.
Hey, glad to be back. And by the way, about the hair thing, I'm in the same situation. It's got to be 5 weeks, or all of a sudden the next day it's a critical mass and I look like Donald King.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it just all
yeah,
of a
it
sudden.
happened to me. It happened to me recently, and at 12 midnight, I looked at my hair and said, "No!" And I got a pair of scissors and just. And so now this one little area has a little hole in it, but okay.
Sometimes I'm tempted. But it's funny because it's perfect, and all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you're like,
I know.
"Oh my God, how did it get so unperfect?"
Go figure.
But you know what? You go with it, and I just have to tell you this. One year, I think I hit my face or something in the middle of the night and woke up, and my tooth, remember that? My tooth in the front popped out, broke off, whatever it did. And I could not, it was Monday. I mean, I couldn't get a dentist appointment before the show. So I came in and Amnon and I were kind of talking, and I said, "You're not going to believe this." He said, "What?" And I opened my mouth and I had a hole. I had no tooth. And oh my God, do you remember that? And I love to laugh. So Amnon made a point of not doing a close up on me. So things do happen when you do these live shows. You never know.
I know that always happens to me on Friday, so I have to wait till Monday. I mean, that same things happened to me, and I had to go to the clinic, see patients looking like Howdy Doody, but I just I got in a fight in a bar, or I tell them I was an alligator wrestling accident, so they're good with that.
But you know what?
Sadly, they probably believe it.
Yeah, really, and things happen, but you know what? Our messages are more important. So let's get Elisa to tell us who she is, and we'll go from there. So tell everybody who you are.
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm a mom of 5 kids, age 22 to 33, I guess. I'm also a physician, been a physician for almost 30 years, maybe a little over 30 years, and an author of several books. My life took a huge turn when I lost Eric, my forever 20-year-old child, who took his gun. And it was really hard because I was raised by atheists. I mean, I'm talking militant atheists. So I wasn't an atheist, but I really did not have much of a belief system about what happens after you die. And also being a physician, you know, we are raised in material science. So for us, most of us anyway, uh, in order for something to be real, it has to be perceived with one of our senses or measured with an instrument. And I couldn't do that. So after he died, it's like, now what? Where is he? Is he still anywhere? And so that's when I started reading so many books about near-death experiences, quantum physics, controlled studies using mediums, all sorts of books about consciousness survival, and so on. And I guess I finally just ran out of books I could read and understand. And so I decided to go ahead and try out a medium. Okay, you're looking at a person who, right before that, if you told me medium, it would have conjured up this image of a gypsy hunched over a crystal ball. That's what I thought about things like that. I was quite the skeptic. But, you know, I knew a lot of parents did seek the help of a medium out of desperation, partly. So I did too. And it was an amazing experience. I've had a lot of really bad readings with mediums since then, and some very good ones. But this lady, Jamie Butler, she only knew my name and credit card number, pretty much. And she said, Elisa, your son Eric is here. He says he took his life. He did it with a gun. This is the kind of gun he used. This is where we were sitting. This is the exact description of his clothing. And she also included his personality, which is really rascally, a lot of sailor talk, which made her wince. Every F-bomb made her wince. And so I decided to keep trying, you know, and having session after session. At first, all the sessions were like personal things, like why or what could we have done, and did we do anything wrong to cause this? But eventually I started asking him about what death is like, what the afterlife is like, what it's like to be a spirit. Do your emotions change? Do your senses change? And at the same time I started to blog, actually my eldest daughter made it for me, Channeling Eric, where, well, I guess I just wanted to provide a place for other people who grieve in a safe and loving, supported way.
Listen, let me interrupt you just a second. Before you go on, I have some questions that I want to interrupt you. So that
yeah, because I might not stop, you know.
Yeah, and I may not let you stop, but I want to make sure that we cover some things. So first of all, for those of you out there that have lost someone, or you know, close to you, or you haven't, some of what we're going to talk about will certainly appeal to everyone. But one of the things that I wanted to mention is when you have lost someone, as Elisa had lost her son, sometimes, regardless of what your beliefs are or were, you're desperate to do something. You know, you're like screaming on the inside, on the outside, to do something that, you know, because you're desperate. You want to be with that person. And I think some of what I heard you say came from maybe that feeling of desperation, because that kind of outweighed, you know, the way you were brought up, or this, you know, having that scientific brain, right?
That's true. But one real turning point was 3 days after Eric died. I got this call from my, again, militantly atheist father. And he said, Lisa, in a panicky voice, by the way, I was sitting in my chair reading the paper, and I look up and there's Eric standing right in front of me, just as clear as day. And then he turned into his little boy self and crawled up to my lap. I'm so startled. I don't know what to believe. Now, this is not the kind of guy, sorry, Dad, that would say this to comfort me or give hope. He was mentally ill and not very nice. And his first words to me when Eric died was, "Sorry, Lisa, but Eric's going to turn to dust." That was it.
Sorry,
So for
Lisa,
him,
what? What did you say, miss that?
"Sorry, Elisa, but Eric is going to turn to dust." That was his first words to me. And, so for him to say that, I thought, well, gosh, he's not going to make this up. So, and he didn't really have any relationship to speak of with Eric or any of his other grandkids. So that got me to thinking, what's going on? And also at the same time, we started having weird things happen around the house, like faucets would turn on all the way, not just a trickle. Deadlights would turn while we watched. Unplugged appliances would turn on. For example, this one Viking downdraft vent. It's the thing that comes out next to your stove, sucks up all the smoke from my burned up cooking. It would just do that every time my husband came from the garage into the kitchen. It would go up and down, just like Eric was saying, "Hi." Here's the thing is that we were remodeling the kitchen at the time, so there was absolutely no power at all. So imagine the Viking appliance expert, what they thought.
Right. And how long ago did Eric die?
8 years.
8 years ago. And you started on this kind of quest how soon after he passed away?
I would say when I got that call from my father, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Isn't that
Things really
interesting?
unfolded after that. Yeah. It's so weird that an atheist put me on this path.
What does that tell you?
Expect the unexpected, I guess. Anything's possible.
I guess, and some things are beyond our control, beyond our imagination.
True.
Right? And
Yes.
beyond what we think we know. Right?
Yeah.
So Chris has a question here on the chat. How did your new understanding about what happened after death affect your relationships with your patients?
Well, I retired relatively shortly afterwards, but it did change my relationship with my colleagues, who I still have contact with. I was sort of afraid to share with them what had happened, but inevitably it'd come up. I would be at a Christmas party and they'd say, "Well, what are you doing now?" It's like, "Well, I'm writing a blog and writing a book." "Oh, what's it about?" "Oh, God, no, I really don't want to go into this." "Oh, but this can of worms." Because, it's scary. You don't know what people are going to say. You're talking to the devil, things like that. And, but inevitably, almost 100% of the time when I share my story, they will open up and say, "Oh my gosh, I got a visit from my mother-in-law right after she died." Or this one lady said, "You wouldn't believe this, but I saw 2 angels standing by my dumpster last night." Just the weirdest things. So I think a lot of people are in the closet about spirituality and their beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you don't know something to be true, sometimes people are hesitant to express themselves when they don't know.
Right.
Right. You have to kind of be comfortable in the unknown.
Well, and, it also took me a long time to truly believe. Really, I kind of floated around 94%, 90% belief. In spite of all the paranormal things that were happening, like seeing him hop on the foot of my bed from one foot to the other when I was not even asleep. I just didn't even have time to put my head down on the pillow. And there was Eric, jumping from one side to the other, back and forth. And my deceased sister, Denise, was sitting on the left foot of the bed. And I thought it was so surreal. And then he turns to me, looks me in the face, and you see this look of shock in his expression. And he says, "Mom, you can see me." So he runs into my arms and we hug. He really felt solid. I tell you the truth, just completely solid. And then he slowly disappeared, unfortunately. And then we had a call from him on the telephone one time too. But in spite of all that, time would pass, doubt would creep in, and I think it was because I was really afraid to totally believe. Because what if then I found out all of a sudden that it was all nonsense? That would be like losing him all over again, but forever. So it took probably 4.5 years And one event happened to put me to 100% and never to go back again. And that was hearing his voice in one of the recorded sessions. A blog member contacted me and said, Elisa, I heard another voice, actually 3 other voices, on the session you did 4.5 years ago. I said, what? No, that was just Jamie and me. That's it. But of course I listened, and sure enough, there was my son. I mean, a mom recognizes the sound of their own kid's voice. It was Eric, without a doubt. The way he said breakfast, he would say it like a child, breakfast.
Mm-hmm. So,
Tick, clearing his throat. I could hear him pacing, which he did all the time. So there we go. And one more thing. I took it to actually 2 sound professionals, and their conclusion was that it was not a human voice. It left no voice print, for one thing.
so what work are you doing now since you retired? What's your work now?
Well, I've got a radio show, The Hour of Enlightenment, where Eric will talk a little bit through a medium for like 20 minutes on whatever, how to let go, or different topics. And then I have a YouTube channel, the Channeling Eric YouTube channel, and the blog, and grandkids that keep me really busy. And we have Channeling Eric events. We had one in Belgium here recently. We've had them in the UK. We've had them all over the country. That's about it.
What's your overall I mean, let's get into your message. What's your message?
Well, I guess a message is something I learned. The most important message over these years is that just because you lose someone doesn't mean you've really lost them. I mean, really, they've only lost their body, and they happen to live in a parallel dimension, just right on top of ours. So you don't have to stop having a relationship with them. You can continue to have them, and they want you to. They really do. All these people say, leave them alone, let your child rest in peace, but that's not the case. Just because we can't see them does not mean they don't exist. Look at this, radio waves, right? We can't see them, but we know they exist. You can't see love, but we know that exists. And that's because everything is energy. I mean, everything. This coffee cup, and I will have a sip because I'm really thirsty, matter. Einstein referred to it as frozen light. Thoughts and emotions are energy. And all that energy vibrates at its own, everything vibrates at its own very unique frequency on this long electromagnetic spectrum. X-rays, UV rays, infrared rays, and so on. So we exist in the visible range. It's a real tiny sliver in the electromagnetic spectrum. And that's our 3D world. That's where we can see things. That's where matter is, and so on. Everything above and below that is invisible. It's like a hummingbird, okay? When they flap their wings really, really fast, you can almost not see them. Sometimes you can't. But when it's resting quietly on a branch, you can. That's because it's a difference in the frequency of those wings beating or not beating, as the case may be.
So you've learned all of this. You've acquired this knowledge through the last 8 years, pretty much, that Eric has been dead, and what you've been able to understand about death.
That's right. A lot of it I've learned from Eric. Some from books, but a lot of it from Eric himself. For example, a lot of people grieve so much the loss of their loved one, and they don't understand why other people are getting signs or visits and they're not. Well, there's actually a scientific explanation for that, and that's when we are really grieving and we're deep in depression, our own vibrational frequency goes way toward the bottom of the visible range. And here our loved ones are outside and above the visible range. Their frequency is much higher. Well, in order to reach us, they have to lower their vibrational frequency so much more. So that's why we say things like, I feel depressed, I feel down, I feel low. It's our vibrational frequency we're referring to. We feel heavier too, But when we're elated, I'm just high as a kite, things like that, that means that our vibrational frequency is higher. And so when people ask this question of me and say, why can't I see them? what can I do? I tell them, watch your favorite stand-up comic. Try to remember some joyful experiences with your loved one. Try to raise your own vibrational frequency.
Yeah, that, it's interesting because I recently moved, which I've mentioned on the show before, to be closer to my children and my grandchildren, and I know my vibration is higher, and I'm totally aware that when my vibration is higher, I am more tuned in and I'm more able to see things.
That's true.
Right?
That is so true. That's so true. Yeah.
Yep. And experience things. So what you're saying makes perfect sense, that our vibration a higher vibration is going to match a higher vibration.
Yes.
Right.
That's true.
So,
absolutely.
So I can think my mouth, so I'm traveling at such a high vibration, my mouth has to catch up.
Your brain is just too fast.
So I don't know if I can do it because I'm like, so anyway, I want to encourage everyone. Oh, you have to be traveling at a vibration. When you're listening to this, come on, 919-518-9773 or computers, 2K voice. Our chat is open. Join us. And I'm sure that there are many of you out there that are skeptics. No question. We're all skeptics too, in some way, because, as much as I can believe it, then there's always that piece of me that maybe can't, that needs some more proof. And then I have my proof, and then I'm good for a little while. And then, of course, I slip again, and I need more proof, and I have to go deeper. I have to listen more. I have to connect more dots to be. And the thing is, Elisa, tell me if this is what you think. It keeps us somewhat grounded in this life to somehow, I don't know, be reminded or experience the being reminded, because we're living here, and if we're traveling at such a high vibration, it can tend to maybe enter into an ego as opposed to grounded. So tell me what you think.
I agree. You can't have your entire head in the afterlife and spirituality. Otherwise, you're going to rob yourself of the human experience, which is all about polarity, about contrast, about sometimes experiencing negative things in order to remember that we are love. That's what Eric says. We are here to remember that we are that energy called love. Everything is love. Everything is energy. Everything is light. But yeah, I totally agree. About being a skeptic, it's okay, I think, to be an open-minded skeptic. It's the closed-minded skeptics that I do have a problem with. This guy, a theoretical physicist, I don't know if you know him, Dr. Thomas Campbell.
Yeah.
He wrote My Big Toe, TOE, Theory of Everything. He had this remarkable analogy that I just love. We are kind of like our intestinal bacteria. So for all we know, bread that comes down to us is manna from heaven. We don't know that the seeds have to be sowed, that crops have to be rotated. We don't know anything about the global economics of wheat, or that needs to be transported to the mill and made into bread and blah, blah, blah. But it does exist. There's wheat and bread out there.
Exactly.
Another thing I like is a quote by Arthur Schopenhauer. He said that truth goes through three phases. First, it is ridiculed, and I've been through a lot of that. Then it's scorned, but eventually it's accepted as self-evident. And that's what happened, for example, when everybody thought the world was flat, right? And then one guy stands up and says, "Nah, I think it's round." So he got ridiculed. I think he got thrown into prison. Who was that? Was it Galileo?
I don't know.
I forgot. My high school days.
Was round and not flat. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Flat
Copernicus, maybe. Okay. Anyway, there will be a pop quiz after this show, people.
Yeah, don't forget, everybody.
Yeah.
So remember, Facebookers, you are welcome to join us on our chat. Just come to NissanCommunications.com and you will be able to put your name in near the video and comment if you like. So Chris has a question now too that I want to ask you again on the chat. So, since this profound shift with this understanding that you have, when somebody does die, do you experience sadness?
Wow, that is such a good question. I don't really feel profound sadness except for they're feeling the grief. And, they're missing the physical. I mean, I miss the physical. I mean, I'm sad about that I can't hug Eric anymore, give him a kiss or ground him. I can't do all those things anymore. So there's sadness on a certain level, but not the profound sadness like when I didn't believe any of it. Plus, I'm not afraid to die anymore, especially after reading, and it's so healing for me. Eric's book, totally channeled through Jamie Butler, the medium, My Life After Death, a Memoir from Heaven, because it describes everything that he experienced in his own words from moments before his death until the present. I mean, in such detail, exactly what the afterlife is like, what God is like, what the sky there is like, what their senses are like, what their emotions are like, what they do on a regular basis, and so on. And that really helps heal me because I know what's in store for me and others. And I know that my boy's okay.
So now that you opened up that part, I want to ask you another question. Then I want to get more into some of the scientific stuff and how you're connecting that with spirituality. And maybe we're already talking about it, actually. So when somebody dies, are the souls at different levels in death?
What do you mean?
In other words, are there certain once a human body or dies, are the, let's say, is Eric more evolved as a dead soul than other dead souls?
Oh no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, he has a big, huge energy, and I think because he gets so much love from the blog members, that it's really fed his energy. So apparently, from what I understand from the mediums, he's super easy to channel, and he can split himself off like any soul infinitely to help people, to prank people, to visit people, and so on. So, but no, I mean, he can cross over, but he can also come back to the earthly plane and haunt us.
What
For
do you
example, I
mean?
remember.
You said
Pardon me?
split off.
Yeah,
Like
he can be.
yeah, go
He
ahead.
can be mini Erics with complete, full consciousness, anywhere in the world. Any spirit can do this. So
That makes really good sense.
yeah, I mean,
It's a great way to put it too.
yeah.
Because you can
So,
split off. Okay.
but what's interesting is at the point of death. Well, first of all, you have to know that the soul is, Eric says, tethered. I read that actually afterwards in some scientific journal, that the soul itself is tethered to the inside of these little hollow tubules called microtubules. Now, those are tiny tubes, microscopic tubes in almost all cells, not red blood cells, that help maintain the integrity of the cell, but are also involved in cell division. All right, so you have the energy of the soul connected to the energy of the inside space of the microtubules. And at the point of death, the energy builds up and builds up. And it's almost like a friction develops, and a little micro spark happens, and then the soul detaches from that hollow space. That is, in terms of physics, what happens during death. Now, some people have trouble disconnecting from their body, and so the friction builds up too much, and it just builds and builds, and all of a sudden, boosh, you have spontaneous human combustion. And that is why there are incidences of that. And interestingly enough, it very often happens to people who have trouble letting go in general. For example, hoarders.
Oh, wow. Okay, I need you to explain the tube again. But you know a book I just started reading today?
What's that?
The Untethered Soul by Michael
really?
Singer. Have you ever read that?
No, I probably have.
Well, that's what I started reading today out of the blue. Go figure.
Interesting.
So describe the tube again.
All right, so every cell has these little hollow tubes in them called microtubules, and they're hollow. And so the soul, which by the way is made of neutrinos, okay? So says Eric. And just to back explain, neutrinos are particles that are so small that they found it out because they could go through lead. They were shooting a particle shooter, I don't know what it was called, and they had a special screen to pick up any kind of particles that would pass through the lead, and the only ones that were neutrinos. And that explains how spirits can walk through walls and things like that. And so anyway, those little neutrinos, which are carriers of information, by the way, connect to the energy inside the microtubules in every single cell. That's how in life we are connected to our body, to every single cell, to every single microtubule within those cells.
Wow. So you got this information from Eric?
Mm-hmm.
From Eric, not reading it.
No.
Is that information out here? I mean, because I've never heard it. But
I don't know about the neutrinos. I could probably do a search and see, but I read a few years later about the microtubule theorem. So he has proven a lot of things, you know, that that come out later, basically.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I can't even ask a question because I don't understand it enough. Which I'm just going to have to listen and just take it in, and maybe I'll have to ask you another time because it's so much. It seems so scientific for me to grab hold of it that I can't.
Well, it's hard for me too, Marilyn. I've had to digest it for a while too. For example, Eric talks about how thought creates reality. That's the law of attraction, right? So if you think I want money, the universe, so to speak, is going to interpret it literally and put you in a spot where you're always wanting money and never getting it.
Right.
So you have to have the thought that you're, and imagine that you already have the money. You already have abundance because there's no such thing as scarcity. That's a complete illusion. So how does that happen? Consciousness does something called collapsing the Schrodinger wave equation so that a wave, like a light wave, will turn into a particle, a photon. Particles are the building blocks of reality, not waves, but particles. So just by focusing your consciousness on something can change waves into reality, into particles.
Let me ask. So it's so interesting. In a couple of weeks, I think we're going to have Eben Alexander on the show. Do you know who he is?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. He wrote the book
Proof of Heaven.
Yeah, Proof of Heaven. Exactly. So he was this real conservative surgeon, I believe, and would never believe anything, like and kind of atheist, this kind of sort of in a way, or anything in the supernatural. And then he contracts meningitis, gets he's he's not just near death, he is like practically dead, and he sees things in heaven that he would never understand or know about, and he's able to wake up, come back, and be able to explain it and explore it. And in some regard, the fact that he was such a conservative surgeon gives it more credibility. Do you feel that Eric's death and cause of death would have something in Eric's position and being able to communicate with you through you or through the medium? Do you feel that there is a purpose behind that, and in regards to the fact that you were a scientist, atheist, and all, not atheist, but brought up in an atheist home, have any bearing on any of this story?
Well, it really helps me relate to people who struggle like me and their journey from skepticism to belief. I think people find me more credible because I didn't believe before, right? And I need science behind it, and a lot of people do also. So they feel a kinship sometimes with me, having gone through the same battle that they're going through too. But it was really, according to Eric, this was supposed to happen. Unfortunately, the way it did, when we're on the other side, we create these spiritual contracts for ourselves in order to evolve when we incarnate. And his spiritual contract was to come to Earth, suffer with learning disabilities, Tourette's, mental illness, and so on, so that he could develop the skills he needed to become a better spirit guide, the listening skills, the empathy, the compassion, and so on. And by the way, he says that spirit guides are actually really common. They're like taxi cabs in New York, he says. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, so all of this is meant to happen. All of this is meant to happen.
Yes. Unfortunately. Yes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, fortunately. Fortunately,
Unfortunately, because if I this is gonna really come off as so selfish of me, okay? Sorry. Don't send your hate mail to poor Marilyn. But if I had the choice of having him here, but completely happy, and not helping so many people as he had, I'd choose that. I really would. Just to.
You choose what? Which?
Mom. I would choose having him here and happy.
Okay.
Even if I knew. And it's really amazing because we've gotten so many comments from people who say that Eric has saved them figuratively and sometimes actually literally. Like I had a comment from somebody that says, I was going to kill myself today, but after reading this blog post, I want to live. And that was several years ago, and the guy's still around. And there was this other mom who lost her son, much in the same way I lost Eric, and she had been going to therapy for quite some time. Didn't work in her case. Usually therapy is very helpful, though. So after her last session, she decided to kill herself. So she was getting everything ready. And I can't remember how she was going to do it. That escapes me. But for some reason, before she did whatever she was going to do, she felt this compulsion to go to her computer and type in, "My son is dead." And up comes Channeling Eric, the blog. So she reads it from the very beginning to the end and decides that life is worth living. And she's an extremely active blog member to this day. So that's kind of rewarding. And that gives me an immense responsibility to continue this, though. It really does. I mean, what if I stop it? I mean, who's going to suffer because of that,
Do you sometimes want to stop it?
Well, sometimes if I read nasty comments, I mean, some really like, do you kiss your mom with that mouth, people? Sometimes that gets me a little down. So I mostly don't read comments, at least not on the YouTube channels, because there's too many trolls out there.
Right.
You're talking to the devil. A lot of the right-wing Christians are very against what I do. And one of my mediums actually got kicked out of her Catholic church because they found out she was a medium. And I thought, do you think Jesus would approve of these exclusionary tactics? Some people actually say Jesus was a medium. So I thought that was really ironic and sad.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was such an active member for decades.
So you do your part, the mediums do their part, and Eric does his part.
Right. So it's like the perfect trifecta along with the internet. But anyone's son or daughter or loved one can do exactly what Eric's doing. I mean, he's not special in a way.
So why are they not doing? So why is it not?
I'm sure there's some people out there that do, but Eric, it's a mission of his, and he feels very passionate about it. And the one thing that makes Eric a little different from a lot of these spirit gurus, spiritual guides, is he has this human quality about him. He's very casual, blunt. He, especially early on, used a lot of sailor talk, and that made him more approachable in a way. So he's not one of those guides who would start out with, "Welcome, my dear one." So he just feels like he's one of us, basically.
So who did you have to be, Well, who did he want you to be, or how were you chosen that you would be because the carrier? Because I mean, maybe he would have found his own medium, but
Well, I mean, he has actually worked outside of me through different mediums too.
okay,
I mean, people I don't even know at all. So he spreads his little rascalness all over the world through different people. And that's fine as long as they're really channeling him and being respectful of me and him. That I'm fine with that.
okay. And when you say respectful of you, what do you mean?
Oh, no making fun of what we do
Okay,
and so on. Like this
okay,
one medium on a YouTube channel uh, said that she's trying to help Eric, that he's in purgatory and things like that. It's like, mm-mm.
you know better.
I know better.
You know better.
Yeah, that's her ego, her religious filters coming in, basically.
But you are you are your own channel. You heard that this was necessary and this had to be done. So you
I don't
have
know.
a strong.
I don't know how I fell into it really. I think
Uh,
if Christina had not created the actual blog, I mean, designed the website, I don't know if I would have done it or not. I'm not really sure.
mhm,
Um,
I hear you.
it could have just been a happy accident. I'm not sure.
So you said you need the science behind it. So now just give us a general statement of the science behind the spirituality, or how you refer to that.
Gosh, there's so much to say. I guess the main 2 points are, the law of one of the laws of thermodynamics, I think is the second one, is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So we have existed forever and we will never die because we are energy. Our bodies might decay and die, but even that it's a recycled sort of energy. And the other thing is that everything is energy, even thoughts and emotions. Eric taught another thing that's kind of important. It doesn't have to do with science really, but I think it's really important to get in here. One of the things he says so often is that we are emotional beings. We are emotions. We are that energy called emotion. Love is the main emotion. And we are supposed to feel first and then think, then have a thought, and then make a decision based on that thought, right? So feel first, think second. It's his motto. But most of us don't do that. Most of us have a thought first, and then that evokes some sort of emotion, and that emotion is what creates a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's why they say lead with the heart.
There
Right.
we go.
Yeah,
There we go.
yep. You sure don't want the head out there by itself because the head wants logic. This is not logical. This takes science into this takes science into how science gets created because you don't necessarily have logic to build to get to science.
Wow, that's really interesting you should say that because it brought up a thought in my mind that logic, it depends on the facts that we have or have gathered. And there are facts that we haven't gathered yet that make it seem illogical. But, once we have those facts, then it probably won't be
Right.
illogical anymore.
But we have to get there
Yeah,
from our heart,
that's
right?
true.
Otherwise, we won't go there,
Yeah,
right? The head doesn't know from that stuff
that's
without
true.
without the heart in that coherent state, I
Yes.
would say. So I have plenty of more questions, but I'm hoping that somebody else would like to call in and chat too and ask some questions. So please feel free if you've had a loss or just curious, just want to know, just call in 919-518-9773.
Yeah, we don't bite. Come on, people.
Yeah, heck yeah. We sure don't bite. And
Yeah.
computers 2K voice and also in our chat. And I want to remind all of you on Facebook, please feel free to join us on our chat. Just come to our website at nissancommunications.com.
And
So,
if we
yeah,
do bite, Marilyn and I have been caught up on all our shots, so we're good.
yes, that
Right?
sounds good to me. You just have to trust. So,
Yes.
just anyway, tell everybody just about your books and the blog and the show because it's important.
Yeah. Well, we have the show every Monday at 7 p.m. Central Time, lasts an hour. Again, the first 20 minutes, Eric talks a little bit, or sometimes we'll have a special guest on. Like tonight, we're having Jamin Olivencia, a spiritual life coach, on. He's awesome. And he's helping Eric's little brother, by the way. And, then Eric takes questions from callers. You call in and ask any kind of questions. You can connect with your deceased loved one. It's totally free, Oh, also, we have an Ask Eric magazine column on the Savannah blog and also on the Sedona Journal, so that you can submit questions when I call for them on the blog, and Eric will answer them. And then we have the YouTube channel, Channeling Eric. Some of them we just channel Eric. Others are celebrities. We even have one where we've channeled Jesus. And on that, you can hear Jesus say yes when I ask him if he's incarnated on the. I had that one also analyzed by a sound professional. He said, "Yep, not a human voice." So if you want to hear Jesus, one of the few in the last over 2,000 years, then you might want to check that out. We also have, I think it's called Voices of the Dead, the clip that the sound professional analyzed, because he, makes it normal speed and half speed and so on. And then the blog, where I post almost every day. I've stopped doing Saturdays because I kind of need a break around Christmas. But, we cover just about anything. And I recommend that you start from the very beginning and just make your way through the archives, because there's a lot of important stuff that Eric shares with us. And, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, and the books. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
The books, well, I've written parenting books because when you have 5 kids, it's a very humbling experience. I thought, people need to learn from my mistakes. And but the books I wrote after Eric died, the first was My Son in the Afterlife, Conversations from the Other Side. And that is my journey from skepticism to belief. But it also covers big concepts like what is time, what is God, what is love, what's the afterlife like, etc. And then the other one I already described, My Life After Death, a memoir from heaven.
And are you working on another book?
I don't know if I have another one in me. It's exhausting and it's very emotionally trying. For example, transcribing the sessions when Eric talked about his actual death, it was very graphic and very upsetting to me. And it's things that I really didn't know and kind of didn't want to know. So I almost quit writing the book at that point. So sometimes it's just a little hard.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
So here's another question for you. Does everything that you're talking about, or a lot of what you're talking about, apply to animals?
Oh, yeah. Oh, animals are life forms, energy. They have souls. They have soul contracts very often. Sometimes the soul contract is to be eaten. And the interesting thing is a lot of people say, well, isn't it better to be a vegetarian? Eric says, no, that a life, the soul of a plant is just as valuable as the soul of an animal. And the soul of an animal is just as valuable as the soul of a human being. So, and in the book, one thing he describes is the death of insects, what it looks like. They have this special portal that insects come through, like billions of mosquitoes and such. And a lot of the spirits like to hang out there and watch, because it's like a fireworks display. You see all these little sparkling life forms just coming through this portal. So that's the kind of thing you would learn from his book. It's kind of cool.
So it's it's interesting because there are questions you don't know to ask until
true.
you know until you hear the information. I mean,
that's the way it's worked that way with me a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's interesting. So if you're an open soul, which we all are on some level, but if you're open to reading, listening, / everything, then you want to take a look at these books, and books that will help you know what questions to ask. Because once you hear the right information, you know it.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. You know how absolute truth feels. I mean, it rings true in your soul. You can kind of feel it in your solar plexus area. Like, wow, that's the truth.
And it's interesting, you talk about everything having a soul. And the house that we just left, I didn't love the way the house was. but I didn't want to talk against it either. So I was caught because call me crazy, but I feel like it's got an energy that it's a living
Sure.
organism. And I didn't want to say anything about it. I didn't want to like my rented townhouse better than my house because I
I
thought
mean,
that
well,
wasn't right, huh?
yeah, there's sometimes leftover energy from previous owners, or when somebody has a fight in the living room, that energy can sort of stay there. So you have to like,
Swish it.
yes, smudge it with sage. There are all sorts of things you can do. Jamie Butler taught me that you can get a bowl of salt and put rubbing alcohol in it and light it until it burns out. And at first I did that in Eric's room where everything happened. There was like brown left over.
Oh my.
It was really weird. So I dumped that, did it again, a little bit less brown, dumped that, did it again, and no brown. It's almost like it just chewed up all the negative energy.
So are you still in that same house?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you feel in there?
I don't like to go to his room. I
Still.
just don't. Nah. And I don't like to go up the set of stairs. It has stairs on one side, stairs on the other side. I don't like to go up the stairs from the front door where I came rushing up to see how he was. I can't do that. I have to go all the way around to the other, you know. Even with all my beliefs, I mean, it was really traumatic. It was a really traumatic day.
Mm-hmm. Did you find him?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
So you have an incredible connection with him.
Oh yeah. Oh, we always have. I always have had a really close connection to him. He could talk to me about anything. That kid. I mean, he would ask me about sex and all sorts of stuff.
What was his birth? What was his birth like?
Easy,
Easy.
regular. 3:00. He was very alert. Peed on the doctor, but other than that, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a very easy child.
Mm-hmm. Very easy.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. There's so much to question, to learn, to communicate. I mean, this is how we're growing. Through these kinds of conversations, and I like to say we're keeping these conversations alive.
It's true.
We don't know what we don't know. So once again, you are welcome to call in 919-518-9773 or check in with us on Skype, which will be Skype Voice at Computers 2K Voice. And you can also still have time to come in our chat. Just put your name near our video and you can come in there and share with us in there. So what are some of the most recent things that Eric is saying in some of the conversations that you've been privy to be a part of?
Well, lately we've been talking a lot about bullying, about animal abuse. We interviewed Hugh Hefner and Howard Hughes, John Denver.
You mean you've interviewed them through him?
Yes, he brings them.
He brings
a lot of mediums cannot interview celebrities. For some reason, Eric facilitates that. So I don't know why. Maybe it's the medium, the ego gets in the way because, why would John Denver want to talk through me, etc. So, but Eric seems to facilitate that communication.
And so what have they told you?
Well, we try to keep it non-voyeuristic. So, I ask things like, what was your spiritual mission? Tell me about a life that you had that most influenced your life as whoever, John Denver. What did you learn? What were you here to learn or teach?
So did anybody say anything so unique, whether it was Howard Hughes or Hugh Hefner or John Denver, that was like John Denver-ish or Howard Hughes-ish?
Oh God, it's just amazing. Like Madame Curie. I always ask, tell us something that nobody really knew about you. And it was that she had a little teddy bear that she sewed to the inside of her skirt or attached somehow to the inside of her skirt. She always had it with her. little fun things like that. And we interviewed Madeline Kahn, I think it was, the little girl that went missing
Oh,
that
years ago.
years ago,
Yeah.
and she described exactly the area north of this and X number of kilometers from here, etc. And it's a lake with a finger-like projections near a harbor and so on. And so I looked on Google Maps, and yeah, there's right around there. There's a lake with finger-like projections.
Do you ask like what's her name? What was her name? The one John Bonet. Would you ask somebody like that how they
Oh yeah,
how they
right.
died?
Yeah,
So do you know
yes. The mother hired a hitman
why?
because she kept on complaining. That was
Wow.
her golden child that she got accolades for. The mom felt all the glory from her, and so when she wanted to just be a little kid again and didn't want to do it and started whining about it, she put a hit on her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that information, what do you do with it?
Like with little Maddie, I did send that information to Scotland Yard. So I haven't been contacted about it, but with the Google Map images and so on. So maybe they're looking into that area. I don't know. Yeah.
Wow. This gets juicier and juicier. Anyway, before I ask my final breaking free question of the day, I just want to remind all of you that I have a book on Amazon, which is listening in just one afternoon, listening to the hearts of men. And I'm getting ready to publish my next one, which is more extraordinary than I even imagined, which is in just one afternoon, listening to the hearts of twins. So there's going to be a lot more of those coming, and just understanding people is so important. So if you're curious, if you're a man curious about men and yourself and want some perspective, or you're a woman curious about men and want some perspective, go find my book on Amazon. You'll find it as an ebook, and you'll find it as a paperback book. And we are also welcoming opportunities for those of you out here who would like to advertise, sponsor the Breaking Free Show and other shows on Nissan Communication. We'd love to talk to you about it. We have some wonderful rates, and it gets you handheld messages and all globally, wherever you want, in the world. We certainly have a wide reach, and our arms and branches go wide and deep with love. So please contact me at Marilyn@MarilynShannon.com. It can be a product, a service, doesn't matter, a message of whatever you like, and we can go from there. So Elisa, any other words of wisdom or anything you want to leave with us today?
Again, I think the most important thing is relationships don't have to die just because the person's body dies. But I want to share a real quick technique that you can use to communicate for yes and no questions with your loved one. It's called the hand game. Eric taught it to me. You hold out your hands and you designate one is no and one is yes. And then you ask your loved one a question like, are you here right now? And you will feel a different sensation on one of his hands. I'm sure they're not going to say no, but you'll feel like a change in temperature, a tingling. Sometimes it feels like somebody's blowing on the palm of your hand. If you don't feel anything for a while, some spirits have a harder time than others. So you might have to say, come on, make it stronger, and encourage them. So that's kind of fun.
That is great.
To them. Just talk to them.
That's great. And talk to them.
Yeah, talk to them.
Right, talk to them. I have to remember to do that, especially with my dad. I forget to talk. I know he's with me, but I don't talk to him, and I don't pay attention all the time. I just make the assumption, whereas sometimes I would just like to feel it.
Yes.
Right? So when you're doing, get ahead. What were we going to say?
Right. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, and when you're doing this kind of hand thing, you're feeling the vibration of the energy, I guess, right?
Exactly.
So that's very cool. So everybody out here, I do hope you enjoyed our show today and that you gained tremendous insight. Elisa, you're wonderful in explaining all this. You're a perfect guest.
Oh, thank you. Please tell that to my kids. They know all my quirks and flaws.
I'm going to tell them you're a perfect guest.
All right. Thank you.
My
I need all the
pleasure.
help I can get.
My pleasure. We look forward to seeing you again. And everybody out here, thank you so much for being with us today. We love you all. Happy holiday. We'll see you soon. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.